Good evening, Bu Vero, and good evening, friends. Today I would like to explain about teacher made test by K. Burgess. For our discussions topic today, we will going to discuss about what are teacher made tests, why do we need better teacher made tests, and how can we design better teacher made tests. So what, why, and how. Before we are going to answer the first question about what are teacher-made tests, we have to distinguish first what is testing, what is test, and what is examinations. Testing is a kind of school activity that results in some type of mark or comment being entered in a checklist, grade book, or anecdotal record. While test is a structured oral or written evaluation of student achievement, an examination is a test that are school scheduled, tend to cover more of the curriculum, and count more than other form of evaluations. So what is actually teacher-made tests? Teacher-made tests are written or oral assessment that are not commercially produced or standardized. And in a simple word, it can be said that a test a teacher designs specifically for his own or her students only. So it is not for business purposes. But there are so many challenges when teachers try to make her own test. For example, here is constructing a good teacher-made test is very time-consuming and very difficult. Moreover, it is hard to understand why something so essential to the learning process has been virtually ignored in a teacher pre-service or in-service training. So the first challenge is difficult and time-consuming. One of the problems with teacher-made tests is their emphasis on lower-level thinking. Need a training in how to plan and write longer tests, write unambiguous paper and pencil test items, and measure skills beyond recall or fact. Another challenge is teachers often overlook quality control factors like establishing written criteria for performance or planning scoring procedures in advance. Teacher-made tests emphasize only in verbal linguistic intelligence, and poor readers are at a disadvantage no matter how much content they know. And the last challenge, many teachers have entered the classroom with very little training in how to create meaningful tests. And we are going to the second question of our discussions today about why do we need better teacher-made tests. The first reason is teacher-made tests allow teachers to make decisions that keep instruction moving. Teachers can make changes immediately to meet the needs of their students. The key to teacher-made tests is to make them a part of the assessment, not separate from it. So, as we know that a test should be instructional and it is ongoing. And the last reason is teachers also need to make adjustment in their tests for the various learning styles, multiple intelligence, and learning problems of the student in their classes. For the last reason, it is impossible to address every student's need on every test, but an effort should be made to construct the test that motivates students to learn. There are about the multiple assessment for the multiple intelligence. So an effective teacher-made test should address more than one or two intelligence. So we have to know first about multiple intelligence. So here, Frender construct types of learners based on their style, visual learners, auditory learners, and kinesthetic learners. Every learners here have different in their style of learning, or learning style. So for example, in visual learners, mind sometimes trace during verbal activities, organized in approach to tasks, likes to read, while in auditory learners, the student is likes to read too, but in kinesthetic learners, they are poor in speller, and reading is not a priority for kinesthetic learners. So teacher have to understand this kind of or types of the learners. And about learning modalities. So what is actually learning modalities? So learning modalities is learning styles of all students. There are some kind of learning styles like naturalist, interpersonal, bodily kinesthetic, visual, musical, logical, or maybe in linguistic styles or linguistic learning modalities. So teachers need to construct the tests that can be adjusted for students' learning modalities and to make modification for at-risk students. So learning modalities is the ways of using sensory information to learn. In order to address this issue, teachers have to know the characteristic of their students' dominant modality, so that they can at least alter their instructional styles and test to match the learning styles of all the students. Modification for students with special needs. So here some part of our discussions today. Teacher needs to be able to meet the needs of students with learning disabilities, behavior exceptionalities, physical exceptionalities, and intellectual exceptionalities. So impossible we have the same learners level of behavior, physical and intellectual in the average level, but we know that our students have also have for example learning disabilities, behavior exceptionalities, physical exceptionalities, and so on. So the teacher made test here can be constructed to meet the needs of all students by providing many opportunities to measure what students can do instead of just measure their ability to read, write, and take the test. So there are some examples to modify a test for students with special needs. Reads instruction orally, rephrase or instruction if needed. Ask students to repeat directions to make sure they understand. Monitor carefully to make sure all students understand direction for the test. Provide alternative evaluation. Provide a clock so students can monitor themselves. Give them the example of each type of question, oral or written question. Leave enough space for answers. Use visual demonstrations. Use white paper because cold paper is sometimes distracting for several students with special needs. Do not crowd or clutter the task. Give them choice. Go from concrete to abstract. Don't deduct for spelling or grammar on tests. Use some take-home tests, maybe provide manipulative experience whenever possible. Allow students to use notes and textbook during some tests, or maybe it can open book tests. Allow students to write down key math or science formulas. Include visual like graphic organizers on the test. Give specific point values for each group of questions. List the criteria for essay questions. Provide immediate feedback on all the tests. Allow students to correct mistake or to retake tests to improve scores and understand what they didn't understand on the first test. This is the way we can modify our tests for the student with special needs. And we are going to the last question of our discussions today about how can we design better teacher made tests. In the book there are guidelines for the teachers to make their own tests. The first is create the test before beginning the unit, and the next make sure the test is correlated to course objective of our learning standard and the benchmark. Give clear direction for each section of the test. Arrange the question from simple into the complex. Give point values for each section. Vary the question types. We will discuss it later. And group questions types together. Types or print clearly. Make sure appropriate reading level is used. Include a variety of visual, oral, kinesthetic tasks. Make allowance for students with special needs. We have discussed it, student with special needs. And give students some choice in the question they select. Vary levels of questions by using a three-story intellect verbs. We will discuss it, three-story intellect verbs, to cover gathering, processing, and application questions. Provide a grading scales so students know what score constitutes a certain grade. For example, 93 to 100 is get A, and so on. Give sufficient time for all students to finish the test. So there are some tips for constructing the test questions. So here a test question should be effective. One way teachers can construct better teacher made tests is to consider the types of questions that should be included on a test. So for example, teachers can choose true or false questions, matching items questions, maybe multiple choice items, completion items, essay items. It is the tips for constructing the types of test questions. And also teachers can deal with objective types of evaluation. So objective styles questions can play a role in the assessment process. For example, like we have discussed earlier about multiple choice, true and false questions, matching questions, and short response question is the kind of objective types of evaluations. So what is actually objective question or objective evaluation? Objective questions are those that require a specific answer. So there are some advantage and or disadvantage of the using of objective evaluation. We go to the misconception about objective tests. Teachers should examine both the advantage and disadvantage of objective style tests and then determine the role they will play in the evaluation process. Objective style tests should be balanced by other authentic assessment. Questioning techniques and three-story intellect verbs. So one method to create an effective questioning, so by making questioning technique, is a three-story intellect verbs. This is used to show what verb teachers can use when they ask questions. For example, for story verbs like count, describe, and match ask students to gather or recall information. Second story verbs like reasons, compare, and analyze ask students to process information. Third story verb like evaluate, imagine, and speculate ask students to apply information. So an effective teacher made test includes verb from all three stories of the intellect. So here is the metaphor or the picture of questioning technique and three-story model. So the three-story intellect is a skill-based pedagogy aimed at developing students' critical thinking skill. So as we know that from the base questions into the higher level questions. So here is the metaphor of three-story building works to establish that students need the foundation of lower order thinking skill to be able to construct the two upper stories of the thinking skill itself. So that's all for my presentations today. Thank you for watching. See you.